If you're having any trouble switching to Spanish on the interpretation channel, please let us know on the chat box and we are going to assist you with that. Right, so make sure that you've picked your channel. And before we start, I'll just do a bit of housekeeping to remind you some key things that we need to remember. Number one, remember to rename yourself with your name and your city. Remember to rename yourself with your name and your city. And then let us know if you have any particular needs, could be hearing or visual, please let us know. Remember to also mute your microphone, maintain your microphone on mute so that you're not interrupting the session. If you're able to, please have your camera on so that we can see you. And also let's remember to use the chat box for any comments, any questions. Let's keep it active on the chat box. Right, I believe that we've all selected our language of preference. So again, welcome everyone. It's nice to see you yet again for our second webinar. And for today's agenda, we're going to see where we are today. And after that, we're going to have the inspirational conversations. And then we're going to share our next steps. So to start us off, I'd like us to do a ritual by reading this text, The Heart of Listening. And for that, I'd like to have 4 volunteers who are going to read for us the different texts. If you're able to, preferably in English, you could read it for us. Any volunteer, please raise your hand and I'm going to call you out so that you can read it for us. Any volunteer to read the first paragraph?
I wish to read.
Yes, go on.
Okay. Listening is more than hearing words. It is about being fully present for another person. When we truly listen, we open ourselves to understanding, empathy, and new perspectives.
All right, thank you very much, Victor. I can see, John, you want to read the second paragraph. Go on. John?
Okay, so through attentive listening, we create space for trust and collaboration to grow. We notice not only what is said, but also the feeling and intentions behind the words. Well, okay.
All right, let's get a third volunteer, sorry. Third volunteer to read us the third paragraph. Thank you, John. Yes, Joyce, go on. Joyce, you'd like to read it for us?
In the world full of noise, listening is a gift we give to others and ourselves. It is a foundation of meaningful connection and innovation.
Thank you very much, Joyce. I can see we also have Maram. Yes, Maram.
As we begin this mission, let us remember every voice matters, and listening deeply is the first step to learning, growing, and creating together.
Thank you very much. This is the powerful text, The Heart of Listening, and I hope that you've learned a thing or two about the power of listening, which is going to be the key guidance for the mission that we are stepping into. Right, continue using the chat box for any comments, any questions, and we will pick that up as we continue. So to get us started, let's do a quick warm-up. And in 30 seconds, we're going to have people sharing a greeting in their local language and give us one sentence on what it means or when it is used. So you tell us a local language, and then you tell us what that local language means or when it is used. I can start. A local language we have here is Neatia. Neatia is a Kikuyu greeting, asking someone, how are you doing? We say it at any time of the day, so it does not have a particular time. So that is what we say in Kikuyu here in Kenya. Someone else? A volunteer, let's make it quick.
Wairire.
Yes. Juliana, you want to say?
This is Rose.
Buenos
Okay, Rose.
días. Excelente día para todos. Estoy muy feliz de estar acá. Excelente día en español.
Okay, excelente Thea in Spanish. Thank you very much for that. Someone was speaking.
Yes, it's Cynthia.
Hola,
It's
hola,
Rose.
hola, hola, hola. Hola,
Sorry.
somos Fernando y Sergio de Argentina, la provincia de Jujuy. Buenos días.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I think I missed you. Did you say Bonorias is the greeting?
It's like good morning, Cindy.
Okay, Bonorias. Okay, thank you for that. I think Cynthia was also speaking. Cynthia? We can hear from you, Cynthia. And then Sunusi can speak, and then Jackie. Cynthia, Sunusi, and then Jackie. If you want to speak, please raise your hand so that we can pick you up. Cynthia? Okay, Sunusi, I think you can go first.
Okay. Inawini in the local greetings here means good afternoon. That's our
Alright.
local language here. Language.
Which area is that?
That's Kano State from Nigeria.
All right, thank you, Sunusi. Let's hear from Rose. Please remember to let us know where the place is. Rose?
Yeah, Rose Kerubo from Kenya. In Kisii, we say Wairire. It's a good evening.
Okay, Kisii is one of the funniest languages here in Kenya. Thank you so much, Rose, for that. We have Maria Elvira.
Sí, hola, buenos días. Yo soy María Elvira desde Córdoba, Argentina. Mi idioma es
Right.
español.
Thank you so much, Maria, for that. Did I miss someone? Julia, you want to say Julia from Namibia? Julia?
Good afternoon.
Good
I'm Julia
afternoon.
from Namibia. So one of our Bantu languages here, our local languages, is Oshiwambo. It has a lot of dialects, but one of the most common used is, let's say, Walelepo, but that's good morning. So it's a Bantu language in Namibia.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much to everyone that has shared. It's good to hear your greetings. Please share the rest on the chat box and we're going to see it as we go on. And as you all know, we're wrapping up Mission 1 and we had asked you to describe your experience for Mission 1 using one word. So let's take a look to see the word cloud that we created. I can see we have people saying patience, engaging, ideas, amazing, creative, systema, educating, exploration, labor, adventure, opportunities, motivation, impactful, illuminating, grassroots, meaningful, motivating, enthusiastic. We have progress and process. All these amazing reflections for your Mission 1. It's really good to see the powerful insights, and it also shows how much this journey is already resonating with us. Right, so moving on, we're going to see where we are today. And as we all know, currently we are starting the mission Explore, which is the second mission of the journey. And this is going to be an opportunity for you to go into the field and speak to key stakeholders and get to understand their perspective of the problem according to how they experience it and how they influence it. And the key objectives for this mission are going to be, number one, recognizing the importance of incorporating the voices, experiences, and perspectives of the local actors. Number two, gaining a holistic view of the problem through an empathetic lens point. And number 3 is going to be validating or adjusting your understanding of the problem using various tools for the field exploration. You're going to have different tools, that is developing hypotheses, you're going to do a validation agenda, and eventually you're going to conclude on your validation findings. And for us to kick that off, we're going to have conversations into different rooms. We're going to have the English conversation, and we're also going to have the conversation in Spanish, where we're going to have amazing speakers walk us through territorial validation, as well as the power of data for systemic decision making. And our speakers for today, we have Laura Lopez, who is Laura Lopez from Secretariat of Education of the Government of Mexico. And then we're also going to have Cynthia Pina, also from the same organization, Secretariat of Education of the Government of Mexico. We'll also have Maria Elvira from Cordoba, Argentina, and Guadalupe Fernandez from Real, as well as Joyce Ekere from Kulika, Uganda. And to give us a bit of details into these speakers, the first speaker, who is Laura Lopez. So for speaker Laura Lopez, she is a psychologist and thanatologist who leads the initiative Healing to Teach, born from the 2003 Local Innovators Program at the Ministry of Education of the State of Mexico. She advocates for public policy that addresses grief in schools to foster emotional well-being and improve learning. She's an active member of Ashoka Networks and a speaker of mental health and education.
Continue, Cindy, if you want.
Right. Cynthia holds a degree in language and a master's in American Studies. She joined the Local Innovators Program in 2003 with a project on grief in schools, and currently works at the Ministry of Education of State, promoting sustainable and community-based public education. She's part of Ashoka Youth and Childhood Network. The third speaker, Maria Elvira, is the General Director of Social Innovation at the Municipality of Cordoba. She has led projects in labor, inclusion, education, and technical coordination across Argentina and the EU. Since 2019, she has driven innovative public policies in local government with training in PMI, agile methods, and open innovation. Guadalupe Fernandez is an economist with 15 years of experience in public service and civic society, focusing on macroeconomics and data economics. Since 2021, she has worked at Real, where she has led What Works City certification project and now coordinates the Municipal Finance Efficiency Program. And on to the other speaker, Joyce Ekere. She's a seasoned agricultural professional with over 20 years of experience in agronomy. She has led numerous sustainable food systems and ecological organic agriculture initiatives. Her expertise spans food security, livelihoods, capacity building, and stakeholder collaboration, reflecting a deep commitment to community-led agricultural transformation. So those are going to be our speakers for today, and we're going to do the conversation in breakout rooms. So for the Spanish speakers, we're going to open the breakout room. On your end, you're going to receive a pop-up that will allow you to join a breakout room. If you wish to have the conversation in Spanish, kindly click on the breakout room pop-up that shows and join the room. If you wish to have the conversation in English, kindly remain in this main session. So the room is open for the Spanish speakers. Please join the breakout room. For the English speakers, let's remain in the main session. If you're having any trouble with that, please let us know on the chat box and we'll be able to
Si tienen
assist
algún
you.
problema, por favor, nos lo notifican por el chat y los vamos a asistir.
Right. Let's join the Spanish breakout rooms for the Spanish speakers. If you're having any trouble, please let us know on the chat box.
Thank you, Cindy. I will go to the Spanish room.
All right.
Record.
Thank you. kindly join your breakout room. Kindly join your breakout room.
Si alguien necesita ayuda para ir a la sala en español, me avisa y los ayudamos.
Necesito ayuda para ir a la español.
¿Quién?
Creo que es Juliana, Ayni, Ani.
Sí.
Ahí.
Juliana,
también.
a Juliana ya la había mandado a la sala. No sé quién más dijo yo también, si no, me ayuda.
Jennifer de
Karina.
Bariloche.
Jennifer,
Karina Bariloche.
las voy a mandar directamente y les debería aparecer un aviso para que vayan directamente a la sala. Si no, me avisan.
Otoniel, desde Colombia.
Otoniel. Karina, ahí te mando.
María Elvira
Otoniel.
también, Ana, no tengo acá el ingreso a las salas abajo.
Dale, ya te mando, María Elvira.
Yeah, good morning. I did not see for Nigeria State in the break room.
Sorry, the English speakers remain in the main session, so you're just remaining here. If you wish to listen in English, just remain here.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
María.
¿Alguien quedó que quiera ir a la sala en español?
Creo que están todos, Ani.
Veo muchos nombres en español, pero de pronto quieren quedarse en esta sala.
Buenos días,
Hola,
qué pena. Sí,
Paola.
Sí, es el que debe ingresar. Buenos días, ¿cómo están?
Hola, Paola. A ver, voy a intentar mandarte a la
Sí,
sala.
por favor, para ir a la sala de español, gracias.
Listo. Bueno.
All right, I believe that we're settled. If you're not, please let us know in the chat box. We're going to kick off the conversation. So for the English speakers, I hope that you're here. If you wish to listen to it in Spanish, please join the breakout room. If you're having any trouble, let us know on the chat box and we'll be able to assist you. So we're diving to the key part of our learning journey, which is deepening our understanding of the problem through territorial validation. And we're joined by two incredible speakers, as you've already heard, both with experience and heart to this work. And first, we'll hear from Joyce, who is a social leader from Uganda and whose team worked on a project on school meals in Wakiso. She'll take us into her journey of territorial validation, what it really means to listen, adjust, and grow with the people affected. And then after that, we'll turn to Guadalupe, who is a brilliant systems thinker and will guide us into the power of data for systemic decision-making and why facts, numbers, and on-the-ground insights are all part of telling the truth of a problem. Right, Joyce, you're welcome. Joyce.
Thank you, Cindy.
All right, can you start by walking us through your territorial validation process and what it looked like, what aspects of the problem started to shift after that exercise?
Okay, thank you very much, Cindy. I am Joyce Ekere. I'm from Uganda and I work with Kulika, Uganda. As Cindy told you, I'm a seasoned agriculture expert with over 20 years experience in ecological organic farming. I'm very passionate about grassroots innovations that bring and build resilience, and in community-led food systems that promote sustainability and local empowerment, especially for women and youth. Kulika Uganda actually participated in the Local Innovators Program 2024, and we came third. We were working on the school feeding program, and our initiative was keep a child in school 1 meal at a time. We came out third out of 99 countries, and our team, all of us, received bronze medals. Thank you very much. And our territorial validation process focused on engaging deeply with the community and local education ecosystem to better understand the realities of school feeding in rural universal day primary schools in Uganda, particularly in the central region, and the district was Wakiso. So the process was very participatory and inclusive. It involved head teachers, parents, local council leaders, school management committees, and the district education officers. So we were able to when we looked at Mission 1 on our problem tree, we were able to pick out appropriate stakeholders, looking at the root causes. There was the school feeding system, so that was schools, the school management committee. Then we looked at the family social networks. Then we also looked at government. So that's how we were able to select our stakeholders. Because when we looked at schools, in schools, we actually talked with teachers. We held focus group discussions. We held interviews. We had key informants. We talked to people. Sometimes we talked to people randomly. So for the head teachers, they helped us to understand the day-to-day realities of running a school without a proper school feeding program. They shout, sorry about the noise. They shared how hunger affects attendance and concentration, and how they really struggled with teaching hungry children. One teacher, she said to us that they have to give examinations during the morning hours when children are not as hungry as in the afternoon. And that was, actually this insight highlighted the gap that was there. And they also told us that they struggle to mobilize parents without clear guidelines or authority. This helped us to understand the gap between government policy and operational capacity of the head teachers. Then the parents, they were very crucial in showing us the economic and cultural barriers that existed within the community. Many expressed willingness to contribute, but cited poverty, inconsistency, harvest, and lack of guidance as reasons for non-participation. Most parents, I would say 99% of the parents, did not know that the school feeding of their children was their responsibility, which actually exposed the disconnection between policy and community level awareness. The school management committee, when we talked to them, the school management committee it was instituted by government, is a local governance structure within schools. They are supposed to support in the implementation of the school policies, but most of them have no training, they have no direction regarding the school feeding issues. Their role in bridging school and communities is very, very critical, but currently it is very underutilized. Then the local leaders, they represent the communities. They helped us to understand the politics and the social dynamics at play. They revealed that while they're in position to mobilize communities, they often lack update information and clear mandates from higher authorities. Yet their involvement is very key in enforcing and supporting school-based initiatives such as school feeding. The education officers, we actually talked to the education office of the district. They are supposed to bring out clear policy perspective. They confirmed to us that the national policy exists, but there is no implementation, no strong implementation network. Yet their role as district officials is essential for providing guidance, training, and follow-up. However, they also admitted that lack of resources, the political will, and clear accountability structures hinders their effective oversight of the school feeding program. So in that, we learned the following. The territorial validation process reshaped our understanding. It showed us that the school feeding issue isn't just about delivering food. It is about building functioning, community-led and policy-backed systems. And that every stakeholder has a role for the system to work. And there must be clear guidelines on roles and responsibilities, strong local leadership and coordination, empowerment of schools and communities, consistent communication between the national policy and local practice. That's what we learned.
Thank you, Joyce, for sharing your experience, speaking to the different stakeholders. You've mentioned parents, you've mentioned head teachers, you've mentioned how the experiences that they had with the problem or how they influenced the problem has helped you understand that they all have a role to play in the system and the key part on communication within the system. Thank you so much. As you listen to these stakeholders on the ground, what did you learn that wasn't part of the initial diagnosis?
Okay, thank you, Cindy. It's actually listening to them, it revealed critical gaps that we had not fully understood at the start. And one of the most striking discoveries was that the policy to practice gap was really very big and affecting this situation around the school feeding, and is much more wider and more complex than we actually initially assumed, because we thought if we got money and got food to the schools, that would be it. But then we realized that it was not only that. So there was this parental responsibility versus reality. The Education Act of 2008 in Uganda, it says that parents are responsible for providing midday meals for their children. But during our engagement with parents, we learned that many parents in rural primary schools do not know this responsibility, that it is existed in the law. Because universal primary school education means free education. So there is this assumption among parents that everything is free, government is responsible. Okay? And then we also discovered that parents could not fulfill the issue of providing meals to their children, even if they wanted, due to economic hardships, food insecurity, or unstable livelihoods. Some parents, squatters on other people's land. So this person doesn't know whether he will stay the next season. And then we also discovered most of the parents in Wakiso is a suburban district. Most of the parents would leave their homes, leave their children with their grandmothers or fathers, and they would go to work in the city. Okay? So the grandmother would not be able really to provide. They were absentee parents. And sometimes the work they do is just casual, little money. So they could not really be able to pay a fee for school feeding. And really, they believed that it was government's duty. As I have said, that universal primary education was seen by all the parents as a government-funded program. And this misunderstanding led to lack of ownership. For a parent to own that it's my responsibility to educate my child. It's my personal responsibility to feed my child, to make sure that my child is healthy, to make sure that my child gets food which is nutritious. And just the passive attitude to contributing to school feeding efforts to the schools where their children are attended. So this connection between legal policy and community understanding was a key reason why school feeding efforts had stalled or failed in some of the schools. In some schools that we visited, there was no feeding children at all. They expected the children to bring food from their homes. And because of that, children would be in class from morning up to midday. Some of them go back to their homes. Some of them don't come back. If it is a mango season, they go to eat mangoes. And of course, even their performance in class was very poor. Then the local leadership was disengaged and ill-informed. So we also learned that local leaders, including the local councils, officials, and the school management committees, were not actively involved in supporting or promoting school feeding. Because in many cases, they had little knowledge of the national feeding policy. They lacked guidelines or training on how to mobilize communities or work with the schools to develop localized solutions. Some leaders were very unsure if they had any authority to enforce or support the feeding initiatives of particular schools. Okay, then another thing that we learned while listening to these people was schools were operating without a clear implementation framework. We found that schools were eager to, but uncertain. They wanted to help, but lacked the tools, the training, and the structures to make school feeding work. Head teachers shared that they had no official guidance from the Ministry of Education or the district on how to mobilize parents or set up feeding program. And they felt limited in their ability to enforce parental contribution or expectations without risking community backlash. As I've told you that most parents believe that everything was free, it was responsible for that. It was a responsibility of government. They feared that introducing a feeding program without clear policies or support might not be sustainable in the long run, because nobody would support them to keep telling the parents, contribute money so that the children could be fed at school. And because of that, it left many schools in a reactive position, waiting for external help, rather than taking coordinated community action. A mismatch another thing that we actually learned was a mismatch in expectation and weakened collective action. So the parents expected the government to provide the meals. The schools expected the parents to take the initiative. Local leaders didn't feel responsibility for either. And this led to confusion, frustration, and inaction. So instead of working together, these stakeholders, the different stakeholders, operated in isolation without shared understanding of their roles and responsibilities. So this actually led to having no formal program for school feeding. So the takeaway for us was voices from from the validation exercise, the total validation exercise, taught us that solving school feeding challenge is not just about food. It was about clarifying roles, building trust, strengthening local systems, and that we needed better communication of policies, strong community leadership, and more practical locally tailored implementation frameworks to turn good policy into a very meaningful impact for the children of Uganda.
Okay, thank you so much, Joyce. It's really unfortunate to hear the challenge that the school children went through, but it's also amazing to hear how the territorial validation helped you understand how the different actors contribute to the problem and also get a better perspective of how the system worked. And I can hear that from what you've shared, you were able to put that into consideration for you to have a solution that reflected your learnings. Thank you so much for that. And from your experience, from all the experience that you had in the field, what tips would you offer to teams now that are beginning their territorial validation process? What are some of the tips that you'd share with us?
So really based on our experience, I would do, this is my tips. First of all, you must understand what you want to achieve in validation. What do you really want to achieve in validation? Is it mere information? Is it really understanding what people pass through? Is it learning? So you really must understand why you are carrying out this validation. Okay? Another thing, before you go for validation, you must identify your key the stakeholders that you're going to talk to. Okay? Map their roles and responsibilities. What are their roles? What do local councils do? What is the role of the senior management committee? So understand their roles and responsibilities. And then you must read. You must start with existing policies. For example, we started with reading, getting information from network. What is the school feeding? Is there a school feeding policy? What are schools supposed to do? What, so that you get information, you go with the knowledge that will actually help you to shape your questionnaire, because we actually had a questionnaires and we had divided ourselves in two groups to go to various stakeholders. Okay. Because if you understand the policy, you are better to compare it with what stakeholders on ground believe or practice. Because it helped us to understand that the Education Act places responsibility of the school meals on parents. That allowed us to identify a major gap in awareness and enforcement. Listening. We started with listening. Active listening. Deeply listen. Widely listen. Because if you listen to all stakeholders, you will understand that each stakeholder has a unique piece of puzzle. So if you exclude any of them, you actually get partial understanding of the issue. For example, while teachers may focus on attendance and performance, parents may highlight economic barriers. Then local leaders will reflect on the politics and social constraints. So the diverse voices helps paint a full and grounded picture on what is happening on the ground. Another thing was be open to shifting your perspective. Approach the process with humility and curiosity, not fixed assumption. Okay? for us, we went in thinking that the school feeding challenge was mostly about poverty and food availability for the parents. Actually, basing on my own experience, I did not go hungry at school. So I had a lot of learning to do. And also I actually looked at, things have changed. I came from a real rural village where food was plenty. While this I'm working in is suburban, and growing food is not as simple as it was. We never had climate change issues. Food was there. Okay, so if I went with that assumption that, parents are supposed to feed their children, to give food to their children, I don't think I would have done what? Learned a lot. So be open to shifting your perspective. And the territorial validation is very powerful. Only if you are willing to let your original diagnosis be challenged or refined by what people actually say and experience. Remember, they live the problem. You are an outsider. So it is very important to totally listen and active listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Joyce, for sharing your experiences with us. It's so powerful to hear how listening and open-mindedness can transform how we act. Thank you very much, Joyce. And now we get to hear from our second speaker, Guadalupe, on the power of data. In case you have any questions, any comments for our speakers as they speak, please drop them on the chat box. Feel free to use the chat box for that. All right, Guadalupe, how do you do?
Hello, how are you? Thank you for having me.
It's good to have you here. Welcome, welcome. Right, so to start us off, maybe you can share with us, why is it key to use data when trying to understand a problem in depth?
Okay, thank you, Cindy. Nice to meet you all. I've been leading this certification in data, so I'm really a fan of data, and I think that it's very key to have data to understand a problem. Data allows us to move from an opinion and to a subjective perception of a problem to a well-founded analysis and decision-making. I know sometimes it's hard to have good data to make decisions, but we think it's key to make a good analysis. For example, data, they provide objectivity. Most of the time, having concrete facts helps us to make fairer and more accurate public policies. They allow to identify real causes of problem, whether it's structural or circumstantial, whether it affects a certain group or equally to all the population. Data can reveal this information. They can quantify the magnitude of a problem, knowing how much, where, and who, and how people are affected by a problem helps properly assess the problem and prioritize actions. They help us also with monitoring and evaluation when you're trying to monitor if a policy that you develop has good effects or not. Data is key for that. They facilitate comparison, and they also support decisions and legitimize interventions when you're speaking to the population and the affected areas. It's good to have database decisions because they have greater credibility and make people feel a part of the process when you're talking with them with data. So in summary, we think that data is like a foundation for a serious diagnosis and effective planning.
All right, thank you so much for that. And what kind of information do you recommend looking at when building a territorial diagnosis?
Well, obviously, there are a lot of data, and it depends a lot on the problem that you're trying to tackle. But when building a territorial diagnosis, it's important to have like physical and geographic information, such as land use, climate, hydrology, natural hazards, if the area has natural hazards, then demographic and social information, How is the population, the composition, if there is migration, living conditions, access to basic services. Then economic information, productive activities of the area, employment and unemployment rates, income levels, tourism. There are a lot of data that we can take on economic, depending on the area and the problem. Then environmental information, air, water, soil quality, waste management, climate change impacts also, and infrastructure information such as transport, education, health, digital connectivity. Depending on the problem, this might be like a very good information to have. How are the housing and the settlements? And last but not least, how is the institutions in the place and the governance information? This is also important because usually when you want to tackle a problem, you need local and government participation. So this is also important. Obviously, not all diagnoses require the same depth and all this amount of data, but it is important to have some to make decisions, right?
Right, thank you. I personally have done statistics and I'm taking so much notes about the kind of data that we need to collect in the field regarding the area, the people, the infrastructure, the institutions, the governance. Thank you so much for that. And how can hard data be complemented with on-ground validation to build a robust hypothesis for change?
Yes, this going with what Joyce just shared, data can tell you so much, right? Hard data like numbers and quantitative things contribute with like objectivity, measurable evidence. We can develop indicators, statistics. They can describe what is happening, how much, where, to whom, and it enables comparisons to measure impact or expected outcomes. But we do also need the on-the-ground validation to contribute to the data that we have, probably to understand why these things are happening and what is causing this data to be as it is. Understanding local dynamics is key. Perceptions, narratives, talking with people on the region, the experiences of the population can help us understand the data. They're also identifying invisible factors like conflicts, previous conflicts, or cultural practices, informality. Sometimes data is not like as complete as we would like in most of the local governments. So it is important to frame the data that you have in the local context. So when we compare it, when we're doing diagnosis, the quantification of the data characterizes the problem, but the on-the-ground validation will put context to it and humanize it. So it's important to have both. Also, data can suggest trends and propose evidence-based decisions, but we need to adjust these decisions to the local context and the feasibility of developing. Like, we can have great ideas based on data, but then we have to know if this will make it to a good port, adjusting by the local context and the feasibility and the actors that we have in the territory, right? So we need both.
Right, thank you so much for that. And on to the last bit, I'm sure we have people who do not take time to understand data or lack the understanding that you actually need to understand the data that already exists or whatever is happening on the ground. So from your experience, what common mistakes do you see in projects that do not incorporate data from the beginning?
We always suggest to have some data, like to start from, because if not, you can have, to start with, you can have a superficial or incorrect diagnosis of a problem. Without data, you're defining problems based on assumptions or perceptions, and this can lead to identifying issues that are irrelevant for the population, or overlooking structural causes that may be there that without the data you cannot take into account. So this is the first one. Then when you're doing the diagnosis, right? But then when you're doing interventions, you can develop poor targeted interventions just because you're not reaching maybe the populations that need it the most, or implementing actions in areas where they are not a priority. So it's important to have this data to back up the interventions. For governments, it's hard to justify decisions if you don't have data backing them up, because if not, it looks like you're doing it just because you want to, and data helps you justify policy making. If you don't measure things, there is a very common phrase: what is not measured cannot be improved. So when you measure and you have the data of where you started, you can compare it and see the effects of the policy that you develop. So it's very important to measure progress or impact. And in the end, what we don't want is to waste resources, and lack of data can lead to inefficient decisions. So that's basically it. Like not having a good diagnosis, not making good targeted interventions, and the inability to measure the progress or the impact, and waste resources. That's like the importance of having data and on the ground, the on the ground validation to match them both and have good public policies.
Okay, thank you very much for the reminder that we need to have interventions that are not poorly targeted and wasteful of resources. So it's important to have data with us. Thank you very much, Guadalupe. That was clear and very strategic. And I'm going to give us a chance to ask any questions. I'll give us 2 minutes. If you have a question for either Guadalupe or Joyce before I share the next steps, please feel free to share your questions. Any questions? I think on the chat, I've not seen any questions so far. Anyone with a question? I give you the chance to speak. Anyone with a question, please raise your hand if you have a question. No hand raised will mean that everything is very clear. And I think we have a question from Julia. That's the one question that we're going to take. If you have any additional question, please post it on the chat. We will share with the speakers and we can give you the responses after today's session. Yes, Julia?
Hello again, and thank you so much for the presentations. They actually took a lot home for me. I actually wanted to ask a question with Joyce in terms of engaging the stakeholders that are necessary for going forward within the process. Obviously, there's criteria, or there's policy, or there's things that you need to follow. Like in terms of now approaching those stakeholders, you obviously had to go through like a formal process to approach them before they could allow you to sit down with them to engage them. So, and how long did that process take you? Did it take you, because obviously we know sometimes with the government, it takes a while for them to respond. Correspondence is not always immediate. So did it take a month, 2 months for you to be able to sit down? I'm just factoring in the fact that we have 6 months to do what we need to do. So I just wanted to find out, was it a tedious process in terms of correspondence from the government, or were they willing to engage you immediately when you approached them in whatever way that you approached them? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julia, for your question. Joyce?
Thank you very much. Actually, Kulika Uganda has a training center in the district where we're working. So we were known to various stakeholders. So it really didn't take us a lot of time. And they have always appreciated what the organization does. So it really didn't take a lot of time.
Okay, thank you, Joyce, for your response. I think from that, Julia, perhaps in your team, if you have someone that's especially your government leader, you can work with your government leader to fasten things if you're worried about how fast the people in government are able to respond to you. But honestly speaking, I think you'll be surprised at how easy and quick they are to work with when you show interest to them. Right, so if you have any additional question, please put it on the chat box. We're going to share them with our speakers and we'll share with you their responses after the session. So I'm going to share my screen so that we can see the next steps and then close off because of time. And I believe that you can see my screen. Yeah, for the additional questions, please put them on the chat box. So we've just concluded our webinar number 2 today. And the next things to expect is that number 1, you will have your collective workshop next week, the 3rd of next month. You'll have the workshop for mission 2. This should be the 3rd of the 6th month, not the 5th. So the 3rd of the 6th month, you have the workshop for mission 2. I believe it will be next week on Tuesday. Please plan to be part of that. I believe you already have calendar invites for the same from your facilitators. And then you'll also have the 3rd webinar. That is the next webinar that we're going to have is going to be on the 26th of next month. So we'll see you again next month for our 3rd webinar. And then you're expected to deliver your tools for mission 1 and mission 2 on the 30th of next month. So you have up to the end of next month for you to deliver both your mission 1 and mission 2. And we, of course, wish you the very best as you're working on your tools. Your facilitators are there to assist you. And in case you need any further assistance, feel free to let us know. And we will be facilitating that for you. If you have questions, please leave them on the chat box. And with that, we've come to the end of our webinar today. It was really nice to see you all. It's good to see the progress that you're making in your different teams. And we'll see you again in our next webinar, the end of next month. Wish you guys a lovely week, a lovely weekend. For those celebrating, I believe there's a holiday in some countries on Monday. Enjoy your holiday and see you next month. Thank you, Guadalupe. Thank you so much, Joyce, for your time. We appreciate all the insights that you've shared with us. Right. Thank you, guys. See you next month. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye. Ya va, ya.
¿Y qué le pasó?
No sé.